Hey, how's everybody doing? I hope this video finds you in good health, good spirits, yada, yada, yada. I'm not sure if this is actually going to make it out video wise, if this is going to work. I'm going to try pre recording this one. The last one that I did was a YouTube live stream, but not in any sort of a conspiratorial way. It, uh, uh, it cut out about halfway through my last video, and I don't think it was anybody trying to censor me or anything crazy like that. I just live in the country and have crappy internet service, so I figured best to do one in the can, and then I can upload it at my leisure. I still probably won't edit this. There's nothing. I don't know how to edit anything. I'm doing this on QuickTime on my Mac as it is because I barely figured out how to get this hooked up, so that I can hear myself. I cannot figure out how to get any sort of other camera working. Either we have a little GoPro. It's not like a newer one. It's an older GoPro, which apparently doesn't have streaming capability, or not streaming, but I can't use that as a webcam. Same for we have an older Olympus DSLR camera, and I thought, oh great, I'll be able to use that so that the picture doesn't look like total crap or like it's being shot through wax paper. That didn't work either. So at any rate, doesn't really matter. If this clearer isn't going to help you, it's not any better the clearer it gets. This doesn't get any better. As little Nicky said, I'm no George Clooney. At any rate, I'm a couple of weeks after my last, or maybe a week. It's been kind of a quick time. I think about a week since I last did a video, and a couple, week and change after I stopped taking the last dose of ivermectin. I did end up getting a hold of my doctor, got another prescription refilled just in case. Not that I'm going to end up needing it, but it's always a good thing to have around. And that's kind of the nice thing about being able to make this video. I can safely say that, and can confidently report that for the first time since, I gotta go all the way back to, it's got to be like early February, I have zero symptoms going on of long haul COVID, or whatever you want to call it, PACS. I think I saw it mentioned as. At any rate, I got nothing left. Zero headache, sleeping. Actually, that's not true. It's not nothing. I still have the most vivid dreams I've ever had in my entire life, which is insane to me. It's really weird to have dreams that are so real they wake you up. Not because they're scary in any way, but just because like you have to kind of check in with reality. I am absolutely going to look into the lucid dreaming thing and see if maybe at least I could have some fun so I could control a little more. But on the plus side, it tends to mostly be whatever the biggest, or not even necessarily the biggest, but whatever the last influence that I have from an entertainment standpoint, that seems to be generally where things end up, and they kick off, from a dream standpoint. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, I suppose. So yeah, it's weird. As a person who never really had crazy vivid dreams, and for the last number of years haven't really dreamt at all, and I'll get into that in another video. Why that was for a number of years, had figured that out, as well as what ended up from having my gallbladder removed, and how that whole thing went down was kind of another crazy story. So at any rate, I digress. Thanks for watching this. Hopefully this can help you. If you're one of the people that's out there that's getting their ass kicked by the COVID long haul symptoms, then I absolutely encourage you to start doing some research into things that can help. And the biggest thing that I found that helped, if you watched my last video, if you're not, the biggest thing that I found helped was ivermectin. Ivermectin is an antiparasitic drug you can get via prescription, and although it's not an official labeled use, you can get ivermectin. Anyone can get it at your local farm and ranch supply store as a horse dewormer. So on the plus side, I won't have worms or bots, I guess, which are disgusting. They're horrible. Got to be one of the worst things I've ever seen. on animals. I grew up on a ranch, and so you're used to kind of dealing with like gross shit. Ranchers and farmers are around a lot of gross shit because animals like, hoof and mouth disease and bot flies and just like a litany of disgusting things that are just kind of part of life. But ivermectin for equine use, I don't have the tube with me. I wish I would have brought it out here. It's actually a syringe, a giant syringe, about like this big. The one that I got was apple flavored. And I will say, just go with the one that is just ivermectin. I believe it's 1.87% ivermectin. It says right on the front. A lot of times they'll have different active ingredients, or they'll have additional active ingredients. I highly recommend that you just do the one that you're looking for. If you can't get a hold of a doctor, to get your prescription. Had a couple of interesting, little deals on that. So I had called my doc to get a refill on hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and ivermectin. And it was kind of the emergency, just in case somebody ended up getting it and started going down the bad road with it as far as symptoms go, starting getting really, really sick. Again, this is not a political thing. This had nothing to do with that. And at this point, as of 2 days ago, I am fully vaccinated. In 2 weeks, I'll have immunity, whatever that means, or whatever protections you get from this. And I hesitate to call it a vaccine. It's more an mRNA therapy. But at any rate, I didn't want you to think that this was... This has nothing to do with politics, and that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is that, we just politicize everything now, and it's gross. Like, it's ruining us as a society, that everything has to be politicized. Everything has to be right or left, and if you're in the middle anywhere, then you don't give a shit about anything according to the right or the left, and you're part of the problem, which is... It's a weird world that we live in at this point. But part of that politicization, I'm not sure that I pronounced that right. At any rate, so my doc called in those 3 prescriptions because I had ended up taking all 3 of them. This was a number of weeks ago. When I had gotten, not when I had gotten really sick, because we had COVID way back in January. It was after I got back from vacation and just I was getting my ass kicked by the after effects. Severe fatigue, pounding headache all the time, weird eye pressure, neurologic symptoms, ringing ears. It was fucking terrible. And so I ended up taking all 3, and the one that actually did some good because it had done good the first time I took it was ivermectin. So at any rate, watch the other video. It explains everything. So he calls in this refill to our local CVS, and they called me back and said we can fill the azithromycin's a Z-Pak is a antibiotic. We can fill the antibiotic, we can fill the ivermectin, we can't fill the hydroxychloroquine. And I thought, okay. And I said, okay, well, I'll take what I can get. And he knows that is kind of a thing going on. And so there's another pharmacy that we can use. I didn't go there for the ivermectin because at the local small pharmacy, the ivermectin is like $80, which is it's completely insane. The antibiotics seemed to be about the same price. They were like $10 at either place. And the hydroxychloroquine at the local pharmacy was about $15. And the ivermectin as CVS is about $15. So trying to do this on the cheap because I don't necessarily want to have to figure out the dosing again. And it's just easy because it's like little tiny pills. If I end up having to take it, I don't think I'm going to end up having to take it again. This is, again, more of a worst case scenario. So... I went to pick up the prescription from CVS, and I was asking the pharmacist, I said, why is it that you can't fill the hydroxychloroquine? And she gave me this long, she rolled her eyes, and she gave me this long rambling speech about how CVS as a company has decided that it doesn't show any sort of a therapeutic effect when treating COVID, and yada, 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 yada. And so basically it's because Orange Nutbag that used to be in the White House, because he put it out there, then maybe there was a rush on it, which, I could totally understand. And so it is also hydroxychloroquine, aside from anti-malaria, it is also used as, it is used for people with rheumatoid arthritis. with autoimmune disorders. I'm not sure about lupus, but my wife's got RA, and so I know that that's one of the ones that she can take. She doesn't, but she could. Kind of like a Humira sort of thing. So I should have trimmed my nose hair before I did this. And so I was asking her, I said, so if this wasn't for COVID, you could fill it. And she said, oh, yeah, no, it wouldn't be a problem at all. No, I don't have any problems with you wanting to take a stand as a company and say, we can't fill a prescription for a different, off-label use, I guess, because then there's not enough to go around for people. But that's not even really the issue. There's not a shortage of hydroxychloroquine at this point. It's just more of it's another one of those, like, we're all stuck in this fear-based economy that by economy, I mean society, that we're currently living in, where we have the CDC director last week saying that she has feelings of doom or feelings of dread about where we're headed. And it's just this, it's not a good message. The optics aren't great. And the reality is that we're not, it's insane. We've lost all ability for rational thought. At any rate, I should get back on topic. So, I took my last dose of ivermectin, well over a week ago. And, by the last dose, I was already probably 90% better. I think I said in that video that I was about, between 80 and 90% better. My long hauler symptoms had resolved themselves over where they had been the last few months. And that was just solely on ivermectin. And that to me was a good sign. And then they kept improving the day after I stopped. There was a pretty decent improvement again. And then the day after that, and then the day after that. And then the improvements get incrementally smaller. I guess the more normal I was feeling, the more like me, the better I was feeling, the less I noticed like the major improvements. When I woke up and I didn't have ringing ears, that to me was like huge. Was not having that constant tinnitus, however they pronounce it. That was massive to me. Like that's something that you can notice. Fatigue is kind of a hard one to quantify because, how do you quantify being tired? I'm not sure that there's there's not really a great metric unless, you use, if you're on an exercise bike that measures watts or something like that, then you can, with your heart rate and your O2, then I'm sure that you could quantify it. But the average person walking around is like, I think I feel less tired than I did yesterday. It's kind of hard to tell. But thinking now, looking back to where I was, I'll say 2 weeks ago, huge improvement. Pretty much 100% better. I haven't worked out yet, but that's because I got some stuff injected into my knees, hyaluronic acid that's supposed to help with just generally getting old, overuse, degradation of the cartilage of your knees. And so I've been taking it easy specifically because of that. I mentioned that, so I got my last shot, my second shot of the Pfizer vaccine on Friday. And it is Tuesday that I'm recording this. I had felt fine before Friday. I was basically back to my good old self Thursday, Friday, in that area. So there really wasn't an improvement. In fact, actually, I went downhill pretty substantially on Saturday. Felt like, man, my arm, holy shit, did that hurt. Like, not the actual shot. The actual shot I didn't even feel really. It was the next day where, wow, that was it was like having the worst bruise I've ever had. Now, for the most part, yeah, I swear to God, I got to figure out this video thing. There's going to be, as you noticed, there was a jump there because everything froze up for whatever reason. So as I was saying, had a really bad, my arm hurt like crazy. Not a big deal. Got a little bit of the chills. I never got a fever. My skin hurt like everywhere. not just in the location, but it hurt like everywhere, as though, kind of like you had a fever, but I didn't have a fever. Good news is it only lasted till about noon, 1 o'clock, and then after that, I started feeling fine. Was no big deal, and Sunday I woke up and everything was cool. Wasn't a problem at all. Monday, Tuesday, everything's been fine since then. So, I mean, the long and short of it is there's a number of things that people are doing to combat the virus itself. But for the long haul symptoms, excuse me, I'm still on Reddit um, and actually mostly just Reddit, looking to see, because that's generally where I go, to see where, or excuse me, see actual stories of what people are dealing with. And in the, I think it's COVID long haulers subreddit. Um, but it's a pretty good repository of up to date, like real time, what people are dealing with. And I think I made a couple of posts there about ivermectin. You can look a little bit about that. You can look a little bit about that. You can search on there and find a little bit of information about ivermectin. There's a growing number of people out there that are actually like myself, that have tried it and showing that it works. There's a few doctors that are starting to use this in their treatment. I'll mention again the I have them up right now, FLCCC Alliance. Their website is COVID19criticalcare.com, which is a mouthful. Just Google FLCCC, three C's, COVID, and you'll be able to find the website. And that's where you're going to find the greatest repository of this information. And they are huge proponents of ivermectin. And this is not just a bunch of nut jobs on the internet, it's a bunch of doctors on the internet. And this is getting more and more important because last week the WHO recommended against using ivermectin in anything other than clinical trials and studies. Based on what? I have no idea. It makes absolutely no sense to me why something that is on there's a list of all the medications that you can get that are prescription, that are available, are basically put on this giant list. And essentially what this list does is it quantifies how dangerous they are based on the side effects, and the benefits. And ivermectin is like one of the safest things you can take on that list for the benefits. Not even just for the benefits, but it's categorized in the very safe or something along those lines. It's been about a month since I first looked into this, because I myself was a little bit concerned about, like, what is this shit going to do to me? And this was before I took the horse version of it. This was just like a regular pill, because, you hear what you get out of the both wing media, that since Trump had recommended it, then it polarized people's opinions, and there was a lot of horror stories, and if you take hydroxychloroquine, it's going to kill you, and ivermectin gets lumped in with that a lot of times. So when I was doing research, that's where I discovered, like, oh, this shit's totally safe. There's not that nobody's going to have a reaction to it, because there's very few things that no one would have any reaction to. But it is, in the grand scheme of things, it is definitely safe. Again, I would have no issues giving this to either one of my kids, recommending it. I've recommended it to all of my friends, for them, for their children, for whatever. Not like as a preventative, although I guess you can take it in a preventative form, but more, once you get it. And so, it's, the science is out there, but I don't know. It's hard to talk about this without sounding like conspiratory, if that makes sense. Like, anytime you talk about this, it's like, put on the tinfoil hat, draw the blinds on the windows, and let's hope that, they don't come knocking at my door. And it's crazy that we have to feel like that in, I say in this country, but just as a species, like as humanity, why do we have to feel like that? If I thought that it was with truly good intentions, and believe me, I believe that the mRNA therapy that they're currently injecting into a bunch of people, myself included, I believe that that's a good thing. I don't think that it's some grand government conspiracy from Bill Gates and has anything to do with 5G. And if you do, maybe find a different channel, because that's not where I'm going with this. But I do think that the conspiracy around any sort of large pharmacological moneymaker is money. And ultimately, that's what it boils down to. I have to think that I don't think that they're trying to silence. I don't believe that there's this big consortium of, people that are trying to silence, getting real information out there. But I do think that there's enough lobbyists and enough people on and in the pharmaceutical industry that, there's a benefit to them not letting any alternatives gain any traction, because then that would cut into Pfizer's forecasts for next year. And I believe it was on The Hill is the website, and Rising is I guess it's a TV show or a web show, but it's on The Hill, and it's Crystal Ball and Sagar Injeti, I believe. I may have butchered his last name, but it's they're it's billed as like, a left and a right, and then we'll talk about everything. But it's more like just left of center and right of center, and we'll talk about things. And they had played a clip from Pfizer's, I believe it was the CFO or the COO or one of those 3-digit people that runs the company. And they were talking about how big of an opportunity the pandemic and the variants of COVID present for them, and how good of a business opportunity this is. And not a business opportunity, but, how good of a revenue stream this is going to be for them. And that to me is kind of conspiratory. I mean, it's I'm all for a free market, and I think that it's a good idea, but like, holy shit, you guys got to fucking profit from this too. Mind you, we all foot the bill for foot the bill. Well, I can say foot the bill because it was not like we had the cash. We didn't take the money out of the bank to give to them. We fronted through Operation Warp Speed. The U.S. government, taxpayer money, funded the vaccine development, and then we got kind of the short end of the stick on how much we're going to pay for it, because we still have to buy the vaccines and the intellectual property, and at the same time we're not allowing other countries, smaller countries that are not part of the, they're not the United States or Great Britain or the EU in general. We're not allowing smaller, disenfranchised is the best way to say it. Poor countries, essentially. Like, can't beat around the bush. Like, poor countries. We're not allowing them to license the technology. They're not going to open source the patent enough so that other countries can manufacture their own their own vaccines, and we're also not going to give them any vaccines. During the press conference a couple of weeks ago, the press secretary made a big deal saying, because this question is coming up fairly frequently now in the press conferences, which I just recently started watching because I figured I should probably take a little bit more interest in the government. And she had said, well, we're giving 1.5 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine to Canada, I believe. Well, the AstraZeneca vaccine is the one that they're looking into now, because there's an issue with blood clots, apparently, or potentially, not even potentially, apparently. And so they're starting to do some more research into that, because it could be problematic where, you can develop blood clots that end up either killing you via stroke in the brain, or not necessarily stroke in the brain, but blockage of blood flow to the brain, or I can't remember, pulmonary something or other. When you get a blood clot that works its way to your lungs, or just basically plugs up your heart, essentially. And so that's killed a few people so far. Again, millions of people unvaccinated, so you got to break a few eggs. I'm totally fine with that. But you shouldn't promote how generous we are by saying, this one that's kind of sketchy and we're not real sure, we're going to share that one. That to me seems like a shitty way to do business. Like, we should be sharing, what we've got, or at very least, I understand that if there is enough people that want to get vaccinated, then we should make sure the priority is with your neighbors, right? But does anybody think that if countries in Africa don't get past this pandemic, that we're not going to get another worse variant to come out of one of those places that is going to start all this bullshit over again, the whole lockdown, the whole everything. Like, if you think that's the case, then I got a bridge to sell you. So at any rate, it's easy for me to get off topic, so I apologize. But I guess it's kind of all on topic because this all has to do with the same thing, which is, again, ivermectin. I can't say it enough. There was a number of other things. So this was just, I happen to bring up the FLCCC Alliance. Right now they have, this is listed on their website. None of this is my information. It says 50 trials, 398 scientists, 15,838 patients, 26 randomized controlled trials. And so far, there's been an 89% improvement in 12 prophylaxis, which I had to Google. That means preventative treatments in trials, an 81% improvement in 18 early treatment, so early onset, 50% improvement in the 20 late treatment trials, which would be like the COVID long haul. So essentially, and you can click on these and it gives you a summary of exactly what they are. But, and then, so a 76% improvement in 18 mortality results, which means that I happened to read that because I was kind of interested in exactly what they were talking about, or I read one of them. And basically they were comparing what happens when you give ivermectin versus not. Does that lower the amount of people that died? And yes, turns out it does. It's not zero. Ivermectin doesn't prevent everyone from dying. But again, you got to look at the comorbidity factors. If you're severely overweight or diabetic or have heart disease or have any of these other number of things that are going to kill you sooner rather than later, and you get COVID, then, it's like, it's not a miracle. It works good, but, and it helps tremendously, but it's not going to probably help everyone 100% because nothing rarely does. And B, if you can lower mortality at all, I think that that's probably a good thing. And then the last one was a 70% improvement in 26 randomized controlled trials. And again, that's from the FLCCC Alliance. Those are the most recent studies that they have. And that was, there's so many links on that website, and they have a bunch of videos that they're done by doctors. I mean, it's not like a bunch of nut jobs, in their basement, like I am. Not actually in the basement, I'm out in the rec room. But they're not done by people like me. They're done by people with degrees and formal education and a lot of experience in this. So on that note, just to go over what it is that I took as a package, if you will, as a total. I'm just making sure that this isn't going to close out again. Let's see. Okay. And you don't want to hear me drink, so let's see if the mute button works. Let's hope that worked. The little light looked like it was flashing. So at any rate, so I took, I got this email from a family friend back on March 9th, after my wife had reached out to them to find out when they got, when they got COVID. They ended up getting it December. They were like a really early case. So he sent this really long email about exactly what it was, but in there was this was a list of, so for long hauler symptoms, here's what I took. And this is actually what I took. So vitamin D. He recommended 5,000 IUs a day. I actually upped that pretty significantly. I think I was taking close to 12,000 IUs a day, because each one, the little tiny vitamin Ds that I have are 2,000, and I was taking 6 of those. I still am taking 6 of those, especially in where I live in the wintertime. There's some debate on whether we're far enough south to synthesize vitamin D, which is not actually a vitamin, it's a hormone. Dr. Rhonda Patrick at Found My Fitness, she has some great videos on vitamin D if you ever want to know, like all you could ever want to know about vitamin D. And it's if you're not taking it, start taking it. Vitamin D was one of the indicators in over 80% of the people who died from mostly COVID-related um, factors. They were deficient in vitamin D. That was one of the studies that I had read. It's one of the number one things that you can do. The next one is zinc picolinate. He recommended 30 milligrams a day. And zinc is really good at getting past the cell walls and can disrupt viral replication, which actually I should note, kind of the short answer on the Cliff Notes version of what ivermectin does is it interrupts cell replication. They aside from being an anti-parasitic, it is an antiviral, and they had tested it in dengue fever, as well as I thought I read on there was an HIV trial with ivermectin, and what they discovered, I don't know, I don't remember what the outcome was of the HIV, but what they discovered was that the mechanism, which would be applicable to COVID, is that it actually inhibits viral replication in some part of the cell that I can't remember off the top of my head. I should have had better notes. So essentially, that is what ivermectin is doing. It is getting inside of the cells and preventing replication of the virus. Zinc helps that process. Zinc picolinate specifically. There's a few different kinds of zincs, chelated or chelated. It's spelled CH, but so far I butchered the names of all of the medications. And so, but there's a few different types of zinc, I guess. I had to learn all of this stuff. I thought zinc was zinc, like you just get a zinc, or like a CalMag zinc was like a big one that I used to take a long time ago. But apparently what you're looking for is zinc picolinate. If you can find it at your local store, great. If not, then the Zon, which I hate going to for everything, but they have it. The next one, I believe it's quercetin, is how it's pronounced. It's spelled Quercetin. Excuse me. So zinc was 30 milligrams a day. The vitamin D I went over. So quercetin, 800 milligrams a day. And it is, so let's see. This isn't from me again. It's a flavonoid made from plants that helps the immune system and is an ionophore, opening the cell walls so the zinc can enter. Interesting. Interestingly, hydroxychloroquine does the same thing. That's what he said. That may be true or not. It sounds good to me. At any rate, vitamin C, which everybody knows, you can get them in chewable or giant horse pills that you swallow, 1 to 3,000 milligrams a day. I stuck with the 1,000. You got to kind of watch. Too much vitamin C will give you an upset stomach, or can give you an upset stomach, I guess. And I should note that, like, I have a really sensitive gut to most anything, and none of this stuff had any sort. I was taking it with breakfast every morning. This giant hand, I think I showed in the last video, it was like a bag of pills, and zero negative effects from any sort of digestion. Never got any heartburn, nothing like that. So vitamin C is a good one. NAC is N-acetylcysteine. It's just a really good antioxidant. It's really good, beneficial to your lungs, which, COVID is a big thing. And that is also on the long haulers, on the long haul topic, based on the fact that the megakaryocytes, which are those really big cells, are getting into the brain. The study that I had read basically said that their best science right now, which generally means best guess, is that they are entering, because I believe that they can be made in the lungs, but that they're entering the bloodstream. Excuse me, they're being produced in the lungs, and instead of all going to the bone marrow, they are allowing to be transferred to the brain. And so anything that you can help to do with your lungs. Again, I mean, it's probably just a good idea to take care of your lungs anyways. If you're a smoker, just stop smoking. I know it's easier said than done, right? But it's probably not something, you don't want to be dumping a bunch of shit into your lungs while you're fighting something that's a respiratory infection. So maybe just cut back for a little while. Nicotine gum, use the gum, and a toothpick. At any rate, the next one was turmeric, or curcumin. 500 milligrams a day, and it's just an anti-inflammatory. It's got tremendous anti-inflammatory benefits. I think I was actually taking 1,000 milligrams a day because I figured that any sort of again, mostly what long haul stuff is latent inflammation from the virus. And that your body's still thinking that there's something going on, and so there's a lot of inflammation happening. So I figured as much as I can knock that down, the more I could knock that down, the better. So I think I was doubling up on this 1,000 milligrams a day. CoQ10, which according to this improves cellular energy production. 100 milligrams a day. They're a little tiny, nothing pill. Glutathione, I couldn't find 100 milligram pills. I could only find 250s. It's another antioxidant, and I was continuing to take that as well. I was reading while I was talking, which doesn't work very well for me. They also, one of the things that the FLCCC, they need to come up with a better acronym so that you can just say what it is. The FLAC, I don't know. One of the things that they also recommend was melatonin, which is generally used as a sleep aid. They talk about using a very small amount, like 1 milligram or less, as an anti-inflammatory, obviously at night. I don't really like the way melatonin makes me sleep. Usually I'll fall asleep really good, and then I kind of wake up after a few hours. And so I tried that for a little while, but ultimately decided that it just wasn't for me. But melatonin is another one that is recommended on their website. And I believe all of these, I was just looking to see here. Yeah, I think all of these are on their website as well. So again, I highly recommend people check out the FLCCC. I'm not a paid shill for that. I don't get paid by anybody except my job. And so I don't really have there's no monetary benefit to me doing this video. Because my YouTube doesn't have enough hours to be monetized. So it's not like I'm getting paid for clicks here. But this is something that I want as many people as possible to get this information. And, 300 and some people streamed my last video, and I only know maybe 150 to 200 people at most, and certainly not all of them give a shit about what I say. So, that's good, because if we can kind of keep this movement going, and more specifically, if we can keep it's not even necessarily a movement, if we can keep the information flowing, and, by people, I mean, I hate to even say it because it makes you sound like a conspiracy nut. Big pharma, the media, this, that. I hate even talking like that. I hate using all of those words, but I don't really have any other words to use for those. Because that is essentially what it is. It's there's a lot of money to be made. Now, there's a lot of lives that are going to be saved by these mRNA therapies. Certainly, this is going to save a lot of lives. And billions and billions and billions of dollars are going to be made by the companies that come up with these therapies. And so far, they are making a lot of money on this. Now, I personally am one that is for human freedom, and I don't like the fact that they, and by they, I do mean the governmental organization in charge, be it state, local, or federal, that decided to take away all of our freedoms under the guise of safety, which, again, I understand that COVID is dangerous. I had COVID twice. And the after effects even, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It was fucking miserable. And I understand that it can kill a lot of people and has killed a lot of people. So does smoking. And we're not locking people down so that they don't smoke. And I know that this is not a direct comparison, but there are a lot of things. Life is inherently dangerous, and I am a big proponent of personal freedoms and personal responsibility and safety. And so, I see I'm going to get on a soapbox here for just a second. Being on Twitter, I see, I just started getting on Twitter a little bit more during this last administration because it was a shit show, and it was fairly entertaining until it got sad, and even then it was still entertaining. But right now, you have people who are just, we're so split. People are just evangelical about one thing or another. And there's very little nuance about things. And so, yes, I am big on personal freedoms. And I don't believe that if you're outside in a public space, that you need to wear a mask. I'm not an anti-masker. See, because I can believe in more than one thing. I do believe that if you are in a... Now, the science is behind me on the outdoor events. Now, as long as you're not like packed into a soccer stadium or a football stadium or fucking whatever stadium or concert venues, stuff like that. I'm sure that there is a heightened increase for transmissibility if you're packed together, even though you're outside and there's a lot of airflow. I get it. If you're standing in a 40-mile-an-hour wind, then probably that lessens pretty substantially, I would imagine, unless you're downstream of somebody, and, in which case, obviously, science is science. But at the same time, I keep seeing all of these people that make this big deal about, I'm exempt from wearing a mask. Like, the fuck you are. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sure that there's a few people out there that are exempt from wearing a mask, but this is the same as the fucking... what were they called? The pets that you could take on planes, the therapy. They were therapy dogs, and then it became like therapy cats, and then therapy. Just like, no, clearly not everyone. It used to just be like blind people, and then it was like scared people, and then it was, people with, and I get epileptics. Like, I get people with legitimate medical reasons, and I am sure that there are people with legitimate medical reasons that they cannot wear a mask. But rebreathing your own CO2 is not a reason for you to be immune from that because it's toxic. That's not the way it works. There's a great book I can recommend out there by a man named James Nestor. It's called Breath. Read the book, and you realize that higher CO2 tolerance is actually a good thing. And so now you get this group of people. There was this lady that I saw on Twitter the other day, and she was all upset because she got thrown out of a store for not wearing a mask. And like in the thing, it's, I got escorted out of a store for not wearing a mask, and then in parentheses, I am immune. No, you're a twat. You're a twat for not wearing a mask inside of a business. And that is my next point. If you want to be on taxpayer-funded public lands outdoors, don't wear a fucking mask. It's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to wear a mask. There is zero evidence that the transmission rates go up at all when you're outdoors, socially distancing. Again, if you're stacked on fucking top of people like it's Woodstock, I can't speak to that because they haven't really done any studies like that. To my knowledge, maybe they have. I have a real job and 2 kids, so it's not like I have time to read everything study-wise about that. What I have read, there's like zero increase in that. And so if you're going to go in a business and there's a sign on the door, whether you agree with it or not, if there's a sign on the door that says masks please, or must wear a mask to enter, or due to safety protocol, or in these unprecedented times, or any of the other fucking platitudes that we have started using nonstop as a species, if the point is put a mask on before you come into the business, put a fucking mask on and quit being an asshole. They're not infringing on your personal rights because you have to wear a mask to go inside the fucking Wendy's, you douchebag. It's no different than no shirt, no shoes, no service. Very few people have a fucking problem with that. If you're in Hawaii, they probably take issue with that. Or I shouldn't say just Hawaii, but in a lot of tropical places, that's kind of a fluid rule, but they have rules. You have to wear fucking pants. Like, it's ridiculous. They're not infringing on your personal safety. Guess what? If you don't want to wear a mask, don't go in the fucking Wendy's or Burger King or Chick-fil-A or any of the fast food joints that require you to wear a mask or any of the businesses that require you to wear a mask. Quit being such a self-entitled asshole. But if you are on land outside that we all pay for, then I wouldn't bother wearing a mask. Because the science is on your side at that point. And there is something to fresh air, sunlight, getting the old heart pumping. There's something to that. I think that that's an important thing as a human being. We spend far too much time sitting around doing nothing. And like, look, It's not like we ventured out a whole lot. I mean, we're locked down as much as anybody else, but like I refuse to be the lockdown where we don't go outside and we order all our food and yada yada yada. No, we're still going outside, but and still venturing out. It's not like we go walk around the mall and you can't go to a movie anymore. But at the same time, it was this last weekend we had to go down and get my son some shoes, and there's an outdoor mall near where we're at, and so we were outside, and I was just sitting there. They were in the store looking for shoes for the kid. I'm sitting there just watching the people that are walking by, up and down the mall, the hallway. It's not a hallway. We're outside. It's no fucking wonder so many people are dying from this thing. Look around. My God. I'm not trying to fat shame anybody, but that's like, I'm a guy who lost 50 pounds. Like I was a heavier, unhealthy guy. And there's a certain point at which you become unhealthy. And that point is when your comorbidity factors start increasing, and there's a higher likelihood that you're going to die younger based on your weight. A few extra pounds never hurt anybody. In fact, it's a good thing. We got a whole lot of skinny motherfuckers walking around now too that are like too skinny they could use to eat a steak. But at the same time, like we are so fucking unhealthy as a species. I shouldn't even say as a species. As a nation, we're really unhealthy. A couple of years ago when we were in Europe, they're less unhealthy. Although still, like not every, it's the stereotype, but a statistically significant number of people in Italy were smoking. And that's not something in the United States we see here anymore. Like we went into a restaurant, people were smoking inside, which totally blew my head. The kid, we went in, we didn't eat there because the kids were like, no, we're not eating in this restaurant. They're smoking inside. It was just like, well, that's how we grew up. At least like, we're not no Burger King. So at any rate, start taking care of yourself. Stop blaming everybody else for your fucking problems and start working on your own shit. Quit being so fucking miserable. Wear a mask if you go into a business. Don't be an asshole. You don't look like some sort of a freedom-loving patriot. You look like a fucking douchebag. I may happen to agree that you shouldn't have to wear a mask. And I'm not sure how this whole thing is going to work with once we're vaccinated, because they're talking about vaccine passports. And in the press conference yesterday, I believe it was, they said that the president doesn't get behind that's a private sector thing, and that the government's not going to be pushing for vaccine passports. Cool. That's great. I really fucking hope that they stick to that, because to me, that is a very slippery slope. And I don't like the precedent that it sets, and I don't even like that it's being talked about. But everybody's so fucking scared of everything right now. Like, we are so terrified of everything. And it's nice to have someone tell you something that makes you feel safe. But honestly, I think people don't even want to feel safe anymore. I think they really, really like just being scared, because then at least it's something. It's probably kind of like the outrage thing, where like there is no like nuanced opinions on Twitter. You either love this or you hate this. And if you don't love or hate this, then fuck you, you're the problem. That generally seems to be how we are as a society right now. And I don't think that that's a healthy way to be. It's far easier to walk up and down the aisles of the grocery store and get a box of crap that's loaded with sugar. And I love a lot of those boxes of crap. I grew up on Hamburger Helper and Totino's party pizzas when they were round, like they should be, not square because it's better for the company because they'll make more money, or whatever conspiratory thing there is. I grew up on those things. It's also part of the reason that I ended up being 200 pounds and seriously unhealthy. And I don't like the message that's being sent when we're not getting a message of take care of yourself. Why don't you drink some more water? Why don't you not drink? Nobody should drink soda. There's like once in a great while, if you want to have a soda or a pop or a Coke or whatever, fine. I don't think it's going to kill you. I certainly don't think it's good for you, but holy shit, those things are loaded with poison. Not to mention Coca-Cola is an asshole of a company. They basically destroy everywhere that they are as far as natural resources go, and they are taking water at a rate that is mind-boggling for super fucking cheap, mind you. They're just like, they're one of those companies that just sucks. There's so many companies that suck now. Companies they're used to, apparently there's always been companies that sucked. Probably most companies sucked most of the time. But like, don't support that kind of shit. But unfortunately, they own what, like, Dasani, so whatever. And that's water. But drink water. Like, drink some more water. Have some fucking water. You don't always need something that's carbonated with flavor. Drink water. It's certainly not going to kill you. In fact, it's going to have the opposite effect. Eat healthy once in a while. Like, maybe not every meal has to have a dessert after it or a dipping sauce with it. And again, I'm preaching to myself here as much as to anyone else about this, but like, we are just so unhealthy. And then everybody's so shocked when like 500,000 people were killed by this thing here last year. And I can't wait until the data comes out about, and not that it's zero, it's certainly not zero, but like, how many healthy 18 to 45-year-old people with normal BMIs, normal blood pressure, normal blood sugar, with no underlying, no cancer, no diabetes, that would be the blood sugar. How many of those people were killed by COVID? It's certainly not zero, which is unfortunate, but that's a genetic thing. That goes to show you that, despite the best efforts, you can still be struck down by this thing. The flu does the same thing. Hell, colds do the same thing. Not that a whole lot of people are dying from the common cold, but people do die from severe colds. People die. A lot of people normally die from the flu every year. Not like 1918 numbers, but a lot of people die from the flu. So at some point we're going to get the data on, realistically, what is this doing? What has this done on otherwise normal, healthy individuals? And I think that we're so caught up in wanting to point fingers and wanting to have this narrative and trying to force people to do something so that we can feel safer, that I think it's dangerous. I think it's a bad idea. And again, I got vaccinated. I was not going to get vaccinated. And then I had read it may have been anecdotal, it was probably on Yahoo or some shit, but that I had read that getting vaccinated helped with the long haul symptoms. And at that point, I was so miserable, I thought, all right, what the hell? So I got on a backup list to get vaccinated. I ended up taking the Ivermectin before my vaccination date, as I said in the last video. And so by the time I got vaccinated, I was mostly feeling good to go at any rate. I'm sure it certainly didn't hurt me. Same goes for this last time. It certainly didn't hurt me to get, and obviously you have to get your second dose, but I used ivermectin to get me over the recurrence of my long hauler symptoms, and then getting vaccinated was just kind of a bonus because I had to get my second shot. And now, again, I'm not one that thinks that anybody should have to get vaccinated. If you don't want to get vaccinated, don't get the shot. Like, you shouldn't be forced to take the shot. But we also shouldn't have to modify our lives because you don't want to. And you should understand that you may be one of those people that could get sick and die from the shit. That is totally possible. You may get it and have zero symptoms. You may get it and have a few symptoms and then feel like dog shit for the next 10 months because you get stuck in the long haul loop. But I don't think that anybody should be forced to do that. I don't like the precedents that's set that I see universities and colleges saying you have to get vaccinated. Now, the argument is being made that, well, how is that any different? Because you already have to get vaccinated for, MMR, measles, mumps, rubella. I don't know, do they do a smallpox? I'm sure that's probably one. Like, there are certain vaccines that you have to have before you can attend probably most, if not all, universities. I get that. This is not a vaccine. This is an mRNA therapy. And there's a difference there. This was rushed through. If the whole autism link to vaccinating shots when they're kids, on your kids, both my kids are vaccinated, the normal shots that they got, that link, there was a link because there was a flawed study, because the study, which has been redacted by the doctor, or excuse me, retracted by the doctor who put it out, linking autism to getting vaccinations. Like, that's not how it fucking works. Again, the instance is probably not zero. It may have set off an autoimmune response in some kids that led to autism. But certainly vaccines don't cause autism. Like, it's asinine to think that. And the people who will love to read that, like, oh, look, see, this is it. What's her face? Jenny McCarthy. She was a big one a few years ago that was an anti-vaxxer. And, you know, it's a slippery slope, and it's a tough situation to discuss. Point being, the instances of negative reactions to traditional vaccines that everyone gets in childhood is so much lower than the negative, and sometimes severe negative reactions to this therapy, to this gene therapy, I guess, if you want to call it, have been. And so I don't think that forcing people to take this is a wise decision. I believe that it should be voluntary. We can't just ostracize people because of that. I'm a free market and free idea person. I think that the best ideas should be, I think we should discuss all the great ideas, and we should discuss the horrible, stupid fucking ideas. And if we don't discuss both of those, we are never going to figure out what the best course of action is right now. But we have this big umbrella over us right now of we're doing this for your own good. It's very big brothery. We're doing this for your own good, for safety. If you don't believe me, go take a flight. If you want to see what I'm talking about, then go hop on a plane, because you will wear your mask when you're in the airport. You will make sure that you socially distance as much as you possibly can, because there's fucking sticky things on the floors everywhere you go. You will not, under any circumstances, do anything outside of what is now accepted in an airport, which is, you know, mostly all of the normal things, save for, and I saw like 2 people walking around without their masks, but now, like, you can't wear one of those gator things, I guess they're called, the thing that I always wear. That's no longer acceptable in an airport. You have to wear one of the, it's not an N95. Do you remember when N95 was the big thing? It was like, everybody has to wear an N95. You have to, because it creates a positive seal, and they were telling people, like, you have to shave your facial hair off, because that's the only way to get a positive seal. And I was, prior to this, was respirator certified. I worked in an industry. I used to be a painter, so like car painter. So I wore a respirator for like all of my 20s. And so, yeah, you need a good positive seal, and you have to have an N95 mask, because that's the only real way to do that. And now you got the fucking mask on like what the lady who cleans your teeth wears, where like the sides are open. It's just like, you know, it's ridiculous. So at any rate, we have to follow all of these rules, all these procedures, and then when we go to get on the plane, they board the planes in a completely different, yet still equally infuriating, nonsensical manner. It makes zero fucking sense how we board the planes now. It's supposed to be back to front, but that ends up because it's a clusterfuck. And then you get on the plane, and there's no meal service. You can't buy a meal. It's just not an option. I don't, at least, okay, so we flew United both times, and it wasn't an option to buy from United. You couldn't buy a meal. They had these little baggies that had like pretzels, a stroopwafel, because that's what we need. Really what you need while you're sitting on a long-ass flight is a giant hunk of sugar. And not that I don't like sugar. I traded mine for the cookies because I'm lactose intolerant. And those cookies are incredible. And a bottle of water. And then everybody takes their masks off. All the people in your row. Now, if you're unfamiliar how the HVAC system on an airplane works, it's circular, right? So if you're sitting in those 3 seats right here, the air flows like this. It's meant to keep whatever contamination is there. And obviously it was designed pre-COVID. Most everything was that made any sense, but it's a circular thing. It's not front to back. The air doesn't blow from the front of the plane to the back of the plane. the air flows like this around the plane. That's why generally if someone in your row is sick, or even potentially in the row next to you is sick, you are also going to get sick by the time you get home. But all of the people in that immediate area are sharing the same air, because it's not like a perfect targeted system as it's flowing around and around, and you all take your fucking masks off to eat. So is any of this, are we doing any of this in a reason that actually makes sense? You go to the bank now, and they have, and it's not just the bank, but I just happened to be at the bank this afternoon. So like when you go to the bank, there's a cup that has clean pens and then dirty pens. Really? Does that make any sense whatsoever? Have they shown a big, huge... I mean, I remember when Dr. Fauci came on at the beginning of the thing, and it was like, don't touch your face. Specifically, this general area of your face. You don't want to be... Obviously, you don't want to be touching your nose. You don't want to be... Can't touch my eyes with my glasses, which is a good thing, I guess, but... As I touch my face. But you don't want to be touching your face, because anywhere, generally speaking, anywhere there's a mucous membrane, that's where a virus or bacteria or whatever can enter. And so that was the advice, and that actually made sense. And that's, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that in like months and months and months, damn near a year, since like last summer. They were like, don't touch your face, whatever you do. And I remember watching the video, and you can find the video where he's like, masks really aren't going to do any good, because if anything, it encourages you to touch your face. Now it's come out that the reason why he said that was because there was a shortage of N95, specifically N95 masks, and healthcare workers couldn't get them, which they should be the first ones to be able to get them. And so, it's all fucking political, just like everything else is, because of the optics or whatever. Point being, none of it makes sense anymore. Like, none of it makes sense anymore. We're not doing any of these things based on logic, it doesn't seem. It seems like we're doing these things based on whatever the scariest thing is lately. Where I work, there happens to be a number of drinking fountains. And in one of the buildings, they don't have a lot of the drinking fountains now have a bottle filler, water bottle filler. And sitting in my porch, my rocking chair. And so in a few of the buildings, they have older drinking fountains, and they don't have a bottle filler. So there's a sign that got put up at the beginning of last year about how to use the drinking fountain properly without getting infected and without spreading contamination. Now you have to understand that drinking fountains are designed in such a way that they minimize the transmission of any sort of viruses or bacteria. If you breathe, if somebody's down there breathing heavily as they're getting a drink, and you go down there 10 seconds afterwards, well, then you're breathing the same air. Those drops could potentially stay aerosolized in the air, and you could potentially end up getting it. Also, if you got to hit the button, right? That's another way. You hit the button, put your hands in your eyes or your nose or your mouth or whatever, and then you could potentially get it. But if you're wearing gloves and you wait 25, 30 seconds after the last person got a drink before you get a drink, there is like zero chance, unless you put your whole fucking mouth on there like a dipshit, that you're going to catch anything. That's why they're designed that way. So at any rate, in one of these buildings, there's a whole thing on how to use the drinking fountain. Then you go to the next building, and they have bottle fillers with drinking fountains, and the drinking fountain part is turned off, and it's bottle fillers only for your safety. And then in another building, both of them are shut off. Again, we're not doing any of this based on any sort of sound logic that I can see anymore. So, at any rate, I guess that was the biggest update that I wanted to give was I'm feeling good. And I have Ivermectin to thank, without a doubt, as well as the FLCCC Alliance. That's what I'm going to start calling them, FLAC. Their information, their videos, don't take my word for it. I'm just a guy who had long-haul symptoms and was tired of feeling like shit. And there's a number of you out there as well. But I hopped online and did the research. And I just wanted people to know that, obviously I'm not getting paid for this, or the production quality would be much, much better. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am neither right-wing nor left-wing, because I believe right-wing, left-wing, it's the same fucking bird. And so none of this is politically motivated. This is simply that this really did help me. I don't want to go on a limb and say that it saved my life, but the feelings and the thoughts that I were having were dark, to say the least. And as someone who had been prone to those dark feelings in the past, it really was not a fun headspace to be in. And it's causing a lot of anger, frustration, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts in people that get it. And in people who have long hauler symptoms. And I can totally understand why. Having been one of those people, I get it. I totally fucking get it. I really, really, really encourage you, if you don't believe me, then do the research, Google around. I'm sure I'm not the only video out there that's talking about this. Hopefully I'm one of the more rational videos out there that's talking about this. I would like it if more people who had experience with how they got all over their long haulers, because I'm sure there's got to be more ways to get past long haul symptoms than just ivermectin. I'm not sure what it is, but that's the good thing about the internet, is that we can kind of all put out a bunch of ideas, and some people would say that's fucking nuts, that doesn't make any sense. And if enough people have the same common thing that is helping them, then that's how we get to one of those good ideas. All of the things that I mentioned in the supplements that I were taking, they're mostly all anti-inflammatory, antiviral type things. Had zero effect on my sensitive tummy. But again, that was just one of the things that I did. I haven't taken any of those for well over a week now with no ill effects. I still take vitamin D. I took vitamin D for years before this, and vitamin B complex, or it's a B complex vitamin. I took both of those because I was deficient in vitamin B. A number of years ago, my doctor discovered that, so I take one in the morning. And vitamin D, I take that. And after the antibiotics that I took, which I'm not really sure if they getting dry throat, I'm not really sure if they helped or not, but I decided anytime that I do that, because I don't like taking antibiotics unless I absolutely have to. I had recurrent strep throat as a kid, and so that was one that I got way too many antibiotics as a kid. And so I try not to take them as much as possible now, but again, I was miserable, and it was part of the nuclear option, as my doctor calls it. And so I started taking a probiotic. The one that I use is from, actually, I got this hat. I had to purchase this hat because I don't have any sponsors. Onnit, ONNIT. Joe Rogan promotes him. There's a bunch of people out there that promote him. They have probably the best probiotic. It's called Total Gut, and it's like, I don't know, like 5-6 pills, something like that. Comes in a little packet. Generally each box is good for 2 weeks, so you get a month's worth for, it's not cheap, it's like probably $60-$70. Usually you can find like I'm sure, I know that Aubrey Marcus, who is the founder of it, he's got a podcast. Listen to like the first 30 seconds of it and you'll get a discount code for On It. Rogan is also another one that it's probably like JRE or something like that as a promo code. There's promo codes for On It all over the place, mostly in podcasts. But their Total Gut Health has been something that I take frequently, maybe a couple of times a year. But any time that I've taken a course of antibiotics, I make sure to take that to kind of get the good flora down there, hopefully not fauna. But yeah, that's it. So if you're still fighting this thing, I feel for you. But there's hope out there, and there's something that you can do about it. Again, don't even necessarily take my word for it. Look up somebody who's got an MD, or check out that website, the FLCCC, at covid19criticalcare.com. Check out that website and do some research. Get some ivermectin if you can get it from your doctor. Great. If you can't, just know that the equine version, as long as that is the only active ingredient, the equine version that comes in the apple flavored giant syringe tube, that's safe. I've gotten a number of messages from people who said, yes, they've done the same thing. And I think in my last video, a couple of people had commented that they had done the same thing. 0 ill effects whatsoever. Totally safe, despite what you may read in a couple of places. But unfortunately, you got to follow the money, I guess, for a lot of these things now to see what motivation is. I'm not one of those things because I'm not getting paid for any of this shit. So hopefully this video comes through clear and okay. I'd like to be able to figure out how to get a different camera to work other than the one on my MacBook, because I don't think this is a great camera. But maybe it'll work enough for this. And if you like it, then if you like this video, then I guess hit subscribe. I'm going to keep doing some videos. They're not all going to be about COVID. I have a variety of opinions about a variety of topics, and I'm a repository for useless knowledge. So I think I'm going to do this on a regular because it's fun. I always wanted to be a disc jockey when I was a kid, and I wanted to do a podcast for a number of years. And after discussing with the old man, who's sadly on his way out sooner, really, really sooner rather than later, after talking with him today, I realized, boy, this is quick, man. You get, what, between 60 and 80 clicks around the sun, and then you're done. And so why not start doing something today? So until next time, take care of each other and yourself. I guess that's probably not a good thing. And I think in Australia, that's the same as fuck you. So take care of yourself and each other. Love you.